When Julian Blackwood, the billionaire businessman, vanished, it shocked the world. A man with an empire, with endless resources, just disappeared. Was it a well-planned escape? Or was there something far darker at play? We uncovered the strange circumstances surrounding his disappearance and the emerging web of suspicion. But now, we dive deeper. The true nature of his disappearance will leave you questioning everything. What happened to Julian Blackwood? And who was truly behind it? The investigation began in the usual way, an apparent disappearance of a billionaire, with all signs pointing to the possibility of a voluntary exit from the spotlight. The police, initially perplexed by Julian's sudden disappearance, assumed the worst-case scenario, a carefully planned escape orchestrated by the man himself. He had no known enemies, no major debts, and on the surface, everything appeared perfect. At first, Julian's disappearance seemed to fit the pattern of a wealthy man tired of fame and fortune. Maybe he wanted to live a life away from the limelight, perhaps even escape the pressures of running a multi-billion-dollar empire. But the more the authorities investigated, the more cracks began to appear in this theory. Julian wasn't the type to leave everything behind. There were too many unanswered questions. As the investigation continued, a significant lead emerged, one that would change the course of the case forever. One name kept appearing, though it seemed out of place: Carter Sloane. Sloane was a tech mogul and a shadowy figure in the world of business. His company, Sloane Technologies, had been quietly rising in prominence, but his relationship with Julian Blackwood was far from clear. Though the two had never been publicly associated, investigators found that Sloane had been meeting with Julian in secret. Julian had even asked some of his close advisors about Sloane's growing influence and the potential threat he posed to Blackwood Enterprises. But why had Julian been meeting with him? And what was the true nature of their relationship? Was Sloane just another rival trying to cut his way into Blackwood Enterprises? Or was he much more than that? As the investigation uncovered, the relationship between Carter Sloane and Julian was far from casual. They had been in discussions about a merger, a deal that could have made Sloane a major shareholder in Blackwood Enterprises. But there was a catch. Julian had reservations about the deal, especially about giving Sloane control over some of his most profitable sectors. Julian had been planning a counteroffensive, preparing to buy Sloane out before the deal could go through. But Carter had his own plans, and they didn't involve simply taking over the company. No, Sloane wanted complete control, and Julian's refusal to negotiate further had left him feeling cornered. Sloane had grown desperate. His growing obsession with Blackwood Enterprises had consumed him. He realized that if he couldn't take the company by business means, he could take it by force. And that's exactly what he did. On the night of Julian's disappearance, Carter Sloane set his plan into motion. He had arranged for Julian to meet him in a private office where Julian would be forced to sign over the remaining assets of Blackwood Enterprises. But things went wrong. Sloane's intentions were clear. He wanted to force Julian's hand, to make him sign the papers at all costs. What he didn't expect was Julian's resistance. In the confrontation that followed, Julian fought back. Sloane, desperate and enraged, struck Julian with a blunt object. The blow knocked Julian unconscious, and in that moment, Carter made a decision that would change everything. He decided to eliminate Julian permanently. He staged the scene to look like an abduction, wiping away any evidence of his involvement. But the murder wasn't clean. Julian's blood remained at the scene, and his body was never recovered. Julian Blackwood was dead, but his empire wasn't yet in Sloane's hands. Carter's plan had been executed, but there were still cracks in the facade. There was still too much evidence pointing to him. Would he get away with murder, or would the truth come to light? The breakthrough came when investigators uncovered a crucial piece of evidence: a hidden email on Julian's laptop, sent minutes before his disappearance. The email was addressed to a trusted colleague at Blackwood Enterprises, instructing them to look into Carter Sloane's recent activities. It was clear Julian had suspected something was off, but he had no idea how close Sloane was to executing his plan. This final clue led investigators directly to Sloane's doorstep. The forensic team uncovered his connection to the crime: his fingerprints on the murder weapon, traces of Julian's blood at his penthouse, and a series of secret bank transactions that tied him directly to the disappearance. After weeks of silence, Carter Sloane was finally arrested and charged with the murder of Julian Blackwood. The trial of Carter Sloane was nothing short of a spectacle. With the evidence overwhelmingly stacked against him, Sloane attempted to defend himself by playing the victim, the man who had been wronged by a powerful adversary. But the jury saw through his lies. He was convicted on all counts: first-degree murder, conspiracy, and fraud. In the end, justice was served. Carter Sloane was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He would never see the outside world again, and his plot to take control of Julian Blackwood's empire was destroyed. The case of Julian Blackwood serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the cost of betrayal. Sloane's thirst for power, his willingness to kill for control, destroyed not only his own life but also the life of one of the most successful businessmen in the world. The lesson here is simple: greed and power can corrupt, but they are also the root causes of destruction. Julian Blackwood's death wasn't just a loss of life, it was the collapse of everything he built. And for Carter Sloane, his lust for control led him down a path of destruction that he couldn't escape. Julian Blackwood's story may have ended in tragedy, but the truth has finally been uncovered. Carter Sloane's quest for power and his betrayal of Julian's trust ultimately led to his own ruin. In the end, justice prevailed, but the shadow of this case will linger, reminding us that ambition unchecked can lead to unimaginable consequences. If you were captivated by this investigation, be sure to like, comment, and share your thoughts below. Do you think Sloane was always planning to kill Julian, or did things spiral out of control? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Crime Scene Chronicles for more jaw-dropping true crime stories, criminal investigations, and shocking revelations. Stay tuned for our next episode, and as always, stay vigilant.